Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 120. 20? It's TWENTY, guys. It's 20. 120 of the longest tenure Denver Nuggets spin-off podcast in the world. Welcome to the DNVR Nuggets' Serbian Corner. My name is Miroslav, and before we begin, please let me remind you to like the video on YouTube, and if you haven't already, subscribe to a DNVR Sports YouTube channel and DNVR Nuggets podcast channel. The audio version is perfect for your commute or to make your office/home office time more bearable. If you want to support the show more directly, you can become a Patreon supporter at patreon.com/Miroslav CUK, just like my Seco tier supporters Peter Plummer and Daniel Lynch. Let's start with a short recap of the last week. First, the Clippers game. Aaron Gordon returned to the lineup after missing a month with a calf strain. Peyton was still a starter, but Aaron recorded good 24 minutes, including the backup center minutes. Malone went with only 8 guys, which is pretty alarming in early December. Jokić scored 15 points in the first quarter, but the Nuggets lost the minutes with him on the court since they had 2 points in the first 5 minutes of the game. Jokić started 9 of 12 from the field, but ended just 12 of 24, so he missed 9 of his last 12 shots. We can nitpick about Jamal not scoring enough as a second star, but the truth is that Denver scored 122, but lost due to horrible defense. Here's what happened, documented in a tweet by Law Murray, who covers the Clippers for The Athletic. Nuggets led Clippers 83-73 with 4 minutes left to play in the third quarter. Over the last 16 minutes of the game, Clippers outscored Nuggets 53-39, even though both teams made 15 field goals in that time, and the Nuggets shot 60%. But the Nuggets missed 8 out of 12 free throws, while Clippers made 9 out of 16 threes, and Harden and Powell made 12 consecutive free throws. Minutes with Jamal and Strother were especially dire on defense in this game. Next, the Warriors game. Several hours before the game, we found out there would be no Draymond in the game. That has put an imperative on the Nuggets to win this game since they had all of their guys ready and were only 2 games above 500 before going on a road trip out in the East. The first starter stint wasn't good again, but Russell Westbrook, Strother, and Peyton Watson bailed them out and finished the quarter without deficit. The end of the first non-Jokić stint was catastrophic, with Zeke Naji finishing minus 12 in 5 minutes. Joker came back and turned the game around for plus 6 at the half. Then he played for the whole third quarter, maintained the lead, but the second stint without him, this time only 3 minutes long, was another tragedy. Joker came back, the Warriors were up 11, and the Nuggets started playing good basketball again. That is when I woke up. Yeah, I wasn't watching the game live after that dud versus the Clippers. It was minus 8 with 5 minutes to go. I almost went back to sleep, but something told me to start up the game on my laptop. Yeah, Miroslav was the call. Something told me. Anyway, the Nuggets, possibly for the first time this season, started playing crazy eyes defense, and the Warriors were made just 2 points in those last however many minutes and coughed the game up. Joker started slow, but finished in God mode with 38, 10, 6, and 5 steals. Mike made 22 on 14 shots. Gordon 15 points on just 6 shots. Christian was up and down, but still had 11 and 6. And our 5 years, $250 million star Jamal Murray finished with 12 points on 12 shots and had one great defensive play at the end of the game. Nathan Fillion meme. Okay, the Cavs game. The Nuggets had no hope of winning this game. Jokić had 27, 20, and 11 on 50% from the field, and that wasn't good enough for the Nuggets to win against a good team this season. This game reassured me that the Nuggets have 1 star and 14 role players, many of them unplayable, of course, which should give them a lot of depth, but the role players on max contracts do not allow for that. The perimeter defense was again non-existent, allowing 9 3-pointers in the first quarter alone. The Nuggets were 0 of 3 from the 3-point line in that same period. Michael Porter had 1 field goal attempt in the first quarter. This is how bad the offense looked like. In the third quarter, the starters shot 6 of 17 from the field, led by Joker's 2 of 7. Nikola played all 12 minutes of that third quarter, and the Nuggets lost those by 11 points. Game over. The Nuggets are now 11-9 after 20 games. Okay, my guests for today are among those who spend the most time in the press row at the Ball Arena and see a bunch of things us mortals miss on TV broadcasts. First, the writer and digital content specialist for the Nuggets, the guy who was writing about the NBA on both coasts before coming to Colorado and needed just 3 months there to almost single-handedly bring the championship to Denver, is one of the nicest guys you'll meet anywhere. It's Matt Brooks. What up, Matt?
What a great intro. You're right. They won because of me. Yeah, you're right. You're right. It's good to be here. Good to be back.
I'm just noticing stuff. Like, it happened. You came to Denver. What? That in January you came to Denver, and in June they were already champions. So
yeah. It was either me or Reggie Jackson, one of the two. So both showed up in March, and then there you go.
Yeah. Reggie Jackson didn't have as many minutes as you did. So yeah, I think it's pretty clear what happened there. Okay, next it's Brendan Vogt.
Yeah, it's going to take at least 3 seconds to get rid of Matt Brooks, too. Too bad we're out of first rounders. Much like Reggie. Just kidding. Hey, Matt, it's good to see you, man. Miroslav, good to be on the
quiet.
program.
Yeah, I gave you no intro, and you can make these kinds of jokes only with your closest friends. And Brendan, you have been my soulmate for so many years, and I hope your totally real girlfriend from California accepts our relationship.
She's Denver right now, and you'll be thrilled to know this morning she referred to you as Jokislav, which was the funniest thing I've ever heard in my life. So,
okay,
yeah, things are going good here.
That sounds like a keeper. That's all I'm gonna tell you about that. Okay, guys. So we have a very up and down season so far, and it is literally up and down for the last 9 games, which were loss, win, loss, win, loss, win, loss, win, and then another loss, I guess, if I'm counting the games properly. So I want to start with a very non-creative question. The Nuggets, as I mentioned, are 11-9 after 20 games. Is 20 games enough of a sample to say this team is what its record says they are? They're currently an 8 seed, but the optimist will tell you that they're only 1 game in the loss column away from the number 2 seed. I will reply to them that they also played 3 games fewer than the 2nd seed, and I don't know if you caught their trend lately. They win every other game they play. So are the Nuggets what their record says, or should we spend a full hour talking about them today?
I think that's a bit of a semantic conversation. I understand the greater point made, and I think by Jeff Morton really put this point out there on Twitter. I don't know if that's sort of what you're alluding to, but I know he's sort of been championing this point. I think the finer points of how reflective their record are, is they've played a relatively tough schedule. They've missed a few games from Jokić. They've missed a bunch of games from AG. So is the record a perfect reflection? I would say no, but I understand the larger point that the record is underwhelming and the Nuggets, outside of the best player in the world, have looked underwhelming. And that's a generous description, I think. So I understand what people are getting at there. It's very suboptimal that they don't know who they are, that we don't know who they are through 20 games. That's not a good sign. But I think the difference between this team and other 11-9 teams is the ceiling with Jokić. And it is because of Jokić. Make no mistake about it. But he is on the team. And so I think they're probably different than another 8 seed sitting at 11-9 at this point in time. But they have to go out and do that. They have to go out and prove that. And the guy that's going to start with the other guys stepping up, especially the other max contract guys.
So 20 games is not nothing. I'm not sure if I agree with them having a tough schedule so far. They had a lot of rest days,
That is
and
true.
that's
That is true.
that is something they're not gonna have in the upcoming month or so.
I meant more
So
strength of schedule, but that's a very good point. I think that's a very
yeah,
good point.
they had the chance to rest up and prepare well. It's the one game that especially stings me was it the Pelicans game after like a 5-day break,
Yeah.
and the Pelicans had nobody. Like that one really stung with me. But Matt, do you think we can file off those non-Jokic games as, it is what it is. You cannot have you cannot expect much better from the Nuggets when their biggest star and the sun of their solar system is not there.
I don't think Matt can hear us, Miroslav.
I don't think
I might have to
Matt
take
can.
this one while
Yeah,
he troubleshoots.
Take this one. Yeah.
So sorry, can you reframe it again for me really quickly?
Yeah. So basically, you mentioned they've played several games without Joker, 3 games without Joker. They lost 2 of those games. They won 1. Would you just brush off those games and just say, I mean, you cannot expect to win those games, so it obviously shrinkens the record.
I mean, you could be really disappointed with the way that they have not played in the Jokic minutes, whether he's available in the rotation at all or just when he sits. It was not a good sign at all that they showed no growth and looked so bad in that game. Is it necessarily damning? Well, it's not new, right? Like, again, that's all I would say. Like, it stinks that they didn't win that Pelicans game, but would I have told you that they would win one of those games at most? Yes, right? So I don't think I necessarily learned something new, but look, we wanted things to be better this year. We wanted things to look different in that regard, and it hasn't. So, I mean, both things are true, right? Like, it's a really bad sign. It says a lot about what the roster looks like with outside of Jokic, how much help he doesn't have. But they also do have Jokic. So I'm more concerned with how they play when he's in the rotation than how it all falls apart when he's not there. I mean, this is like the early Cavs teams. If LeBron wasn't on the floor, they wouldn't be good, and I know that. But I think the most important analysis starts with what it looks like when he's out there. And some of those issues are still there, as in when he sits, what does it look like? And it doesn't seem to matter who they stagger. They have not figured that out. They have not figured that out for years.
So just to try to put a pin on this or a bow on this, how many more games do you need to see from the Nuggets to say, okay, I think this is the team we are getting this season?
I'm not really sure if I have a number in mind. I think the big thing you're trying to figure out right now is this just another slow start to the season for Jamal, or is this a further descent right into what seems to be futile, what's not going to work, right? So I'm not super confident that we're going to see much better from Murray anytime soon. And again, we were hopeful that we wouldn't have to wait till December this time around, when that's a big point. All the same, I do wonder, like, how much different this could look if Murray figures it out. And is this just another slow November, which has been a big part of his career thus far, which in and of itself is a criticism. But as far as what does this team look like going forward, that's the hardest part to figure out right now. I think even with their depth issues, Miroslav, they would much more closely resemble the Nuggets we remember if Jamal Murray's was just more engaged and playing better. And so that's the big question. It's been the big question before the season started, and all I can say is 20 games in, I don't feel better about it.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think with 2023 Jamal Murray, the Nuggets would probably be like 15-5 or 16 or 14-6, something like that, instead of 11-9. Matt, I think we can hear you now. How do you feel about the Nuggets so far? Do you think we've seen what they are going to be this season, or do you think it's still just early season's lulls?
Is this, sorry, I've been cutting in and out. Is this question to me?
Yes, yes.
I did. It was a disaster on my end. Internet speed's good. Yeah, it's been a weird year. It's weird because I think a lot of the focus has been on the offense and Jamal and all this stuff. And it's the defense that's really just like hasn't been there. I think they were like top 10 at this point last year defensively. And this year they're what? I can look it up right now. They have been hovering around bottom 10 right now after last night's loss. I actually bet you they went up a little bit because they held Cleveland to like an okay offensive rating, which is weird, even though its score was so high. Nuggets right now are 17th in defense. That's been the big drop-off point. Like if you look at their half-court offense, it's dropped by a couple points. I think they were 5th, 6th last year in half-court offense. This year they're about 9th. Transition offense has gotten better, but really to me, it's just like been the story all year has been the defense. Like it just hasn't felt super connected. It's been a lot of stuff with switches where it just looks like timing's off. And I guess it really depends how you look at that, right? Like you could look at it and say, well, it's not good that the team's not connected, but you could also look at it and say, well, they just have to get connected, right? And then everything should run smoothly. I mean, even like Jamal's numbers, which is what you guys were talking about just now, like Jamal, and this is Ryan Freemeyer who put this out on Twitter today. Jamal Murray career October true shooting 50%. This year he was at 50%. November for his career 53%. November this year 53%. His career December true shooting 55.6%. This year 55.2%. By the numbers, he's kind of been pretty similar if you're looking at just like efficiency and stuff like that. It has definitely felt like at points. I think it's just like a lot of it's just been the clutch games and stuff like that. The Nuggets have lost more of those this year than they did last year. You always point to the offense in those situations because that's who the Nuggets have been, is this great offensive team. They're 5th in offense right now. It's the defense to me that keeps sticking out. So that's been kind of my takeaway so far through 20 games.
I just wonder how connected all of it is for the Nuggets, right? Because the championship Nuggets throughout the regular season were, hey, man, we will play defense in the fourth quarter when it matters. The ball's popping for 3 quarters. We're having fun. We're playing connected basketball. And then their crunch time hammer was a two-way thing, right? Like they would play amazing crunch time defense. And this year, their best punt, they don't have that hammer. On both sides, it seems to be a little weaker. But I also wonder, man, if it's just like it's even when they're scoring well, it just looks a little uninspired, right? And I think Murray in particular, I just wonder how much it would help everyone's buy-in and connectivity if it didn't look like they were hating this as much as they are. Honestly, that's the thing. It doesn't seem like there's a lot of joy out there right now. And I personally think Murray is the guy that, because Jokić has already been so good, Murray is the guy that can galvanize them by being a little more engaged, a little more effective on offense, but also just playing with some inspiration. I just think, like we saw it at the end of the first half last night. I don't know who it was, who said what. They decided that they were going to tighten up, and they played, I thought, their best defense against the best opponent so far this season to make it a game at halftime. It wasn't enough, and it hasn't been consistent enough. I just wonder how much of it is this weird sort of guys are just floating through the motions, and that starts from the top down, outside of Jokić, of course.
Yeah, last night's game was, again, I think it depends how you look at this stuff, because
right.
It was, they play like, I felt like that stretch in the second quarter where they come back, I think they have like a 21-9 run or something like that. It looks like Nuggets basketball, right? Like you get Murray, he posts up a couple mismatches. AG's like just doing work. I mean, they're getting stops, and then AG's posting up smaller players on the other end. They're getting those mismatches because they're getting stops. Now the Cavs are kind of disorganized, right? I think Mike had a couple big makes. It felt like, and maybe it's because it's like the main guys, like your core guys are making these shots. It felt familiar, but it felt like Nuggets basketball. And again, it all depends on how you look at this stuff. The optimist will say it's there, it's sitting there waiting to happen, or the pessimist will be like, damn, they can't channel it for 48 minutes. And it really depends right now where you're at. And I don't have an answer. I really don't. I'm not going to tell. I don't really know either way right now. We probably won't know until we're in game 40, realistically.
But Miroslav, don't you think part of what's missing is even when they did that 2 years ago, there was this, I don't want to say swagger, I really don't, but this confidence, like it's not maybe we'll do it in the fourth, it's we'll do it in the fourth. And this year, like, to me, that stuff just all kind of feels absent. And so when they find themselves kind of in these, the wheels are wobbly moments, I just don't quite have the same confidence in them bringing it together.
If I remember correctly, that 22-23 season, championship season, I think they needed something like 10-15 games to realize how good they are. And at one moment it was like, oh yeah, we got this. Like nobody can stay in a game with us. Like we know what we should do to win every important game, and they did. They actually did. There weren't so many up and downs. They had a huge lead in the West early in the March, so they could ease into the playoffs, rest their guys a lot in the April, and then just stomp everybody. So it is really cool to have that sort of feeling. And I don't know if this iteration of team is gonna get to that point. They might. I don't know. Like we will see. It is something to behold in the 62 games in front of us before the playoffs, and if I may say so, before the play-in, possibly. We will see about that. Okay, let's take one short break, and then we will try to answer the question who these Denver Nuggets actually are. And before that, we need to talk about floors. And when we talk about the floors, we talk about, Brendan?
Empire
Today. When you need new flooring, you don't need to look any further. So many people already enjoy Empire Today floors. Come to the DNVR bar, come upstairs and see the flooring over there. You will see what beautiful flooring the studio has. It's Empire Today. With Empire Today, you get shop at home convenience, the right product for your needs, quick and professional installation, and a price match guarantee. Empire Today is the best place to get new flooring, so of course they have copycats that will tell you they have the lowest prices in the market, and that's because they are selling you bad product. Empire Today would never say something like that because nobody can beat them on quality, service, or speed. Empire Today will never offer you the lowest prices because the ones who does will put flooring in your home that they wouldn't put in theirs. Their philosophy is to help you find what you need, not overwhelm you with thousands of choices and substitutes, and what they leave out of their selection is as important as what they put in. Their virtual floor designer is a great way to see how new floors will look in any space. Just snap a picture and see what the new floor would look like in your room, in your lighting and decor. Flooring is all Empire Today does. They live and breathe flooring, so you can be confident you're getting honest, upfront advice. They service their own warranties. Just call Empire if you have any kind of issue. Schedule a free in-home estimate today. All listeners can receive a $300 off discount when they use the promo code DNVR. Restrictions apply. See empiretoday.com/DNVR for details. That's empiretoday.com/DNVR. Okay, we are back, and we're going to do these next two segments in like Bill Simmons, Zach Lowe kind of way. Like we're just going to go in circle and try to find something that describes this Nuggets season the best, whether it is a stat of some sort or a storyline. And I would like to start this time around with a small stat I saw this morning when I was preparing for the show, and that's Matt mentioned the close games, the clutch stats, and I believe the Nuggets are 6-4 this season in clutch games, And interestingly enough, they're like, I think, third or fourth in the entire league in the clutch time net rating at something like plus 12. Now, that doesn't sound like a 6-4 team, but the thing is, they have been down in most of those games. So that's one thing I am kind of annoyed about. Nuggets just fall down in so many games this season. Would you agree that this is a storyline for this season, or is it something that happened randomly and might flip around very soon? Let's start with Matt here.
Yeah, that's a hard question. I don't know. I have no clue, honestly. Some teams are like that. Like there's certain teams that they come out flat all year. There's teams that are going to be really like, you remember the Warriors when they had Durant, like they were this great third quarter team. Like it's kind of who they are. Probably need more of a sample on that. And that's such a cop out, but I don't know yet. And I think that's generally my feel with the team is I don't feel like I know a lot yet about them, which is weird through 20 games.
Which is fairly concerning through 20 games. That in itself is weird. But I mean, to me, I think, Matt, what feels different about that dynamic right now, getting down big, is to me, this is where the math problem rears its head. Like if Denver plays a really good game and a really focused game defensively, they can still get to really, really easily, to Matt's point, even with Jamal Murray struggles. But the math problem of how perfect you need to be, right? Because like when you fall down early now, these are turning into avalanches because other teams are shooting more threes than ever. And then I think also so far, it just seems like the end of the first quarter and the start of second quarters are worse than ever, whatever those non-Jokić minutes are. But, I think this is kind of what's so frustrating. When they do decide, like, hey, we're going to play defense for an extended period, they can do it, and they still score really, really well. And a lot of the starters are having decent to good seasons. It's just, I think when it takes them so long to start and then they're buried underneath an avalanche of threes, they have to be nearly perfect. And that's an exhausting way to spend the season. So we want to see that change for sure.
Okay, Matt, what do you want us to start with?
Just for my who I think the Nuggets are.
Mm-hmm.
Unclear, TBD. That's just like, and again, like it's funny, you go into the year. The big question is about shooting, right? And you look right now, they're fourth in 3-point percentage, 38.7%. They have 7 guys of their, like right now, 8-man rotation shooting a better 3-point percentage than last year. I was just looking at that today. AG goes up by 24.3%. Jokić goes up by 14.1%. So everything, it's just been like a bizarro season where everything that we maybe thought about or the talking points that we had coming into the year have not necessarily played out. Now, I'd say all this to say it's I don't know, for fourth of the way through the season, it still feels like we've played a lot of games. We have. It is still pretty early. Like you go back to the championship season and the big game that kind of changed the season, and they brought it up all through. Malone brought it up all throughout the playoffs, was the Portland game where Jamal hits the game winner. That happened on December 9th. Like this is not like it took a second in that season. And I had to go look at this right now. It took December 9th. We're recording December 6th. So, maybe it's not going to happen in 3 days, but it did take a second to start to click. Then they go on that big win streak and get all the way up the standings. That's what it'll have to take. And realistically, I don't know. I wasn't covering the team, in December, before December 6th of 2022. So I don't know. You guys can speak on this. What were the vibes then? Was it like crystal clear who the team was?
No, not deep enough, actually. Not deep enough non-Jokić minutes. And is the defense switch real? Is the late game switch real? And that one, actually, I think we spent all season wondering until the playoff run. They gave us a pretty definitive answer.
Yeah, our guy, Bruce Brown, was like minus 19.
It was a choppier season for Bruce Brown than people remember.
Yeah.
The things he provided in the playoff run were essential and sorely missed now. but it wasn't like from day one, from game one through game 82, we were like, wow, Bruce Brown, maybe he should be the MVP.
Yeah, but here's the thing. Like, yes, his numbers were bad, like on-off splits were bad. But on the other hand, he looked like a real player
No, he
all
did.
the time.
No, he did.
He was really good. It's just that it wasn't working. The five-man lineup he was playing with wasn't working, and then he was switching in for almost all the. I actually believe for all five starters, he was switching in the starting lineup throughout the season. Even Joker was missing for one or two games, and he was sliding right there, like at the small
But it
forward
wasn't,
or
to
power
Matt's
forward.
point though, right? It wasn't until I think January that they really turned into a
agree.
buzzsaw, and you were like, okay, from here on out, I know that this Bruce Brown thing is a great addition. I know the 7 guys they're going to have in the playoffs. So it did take some time, but someone in the chat made a good point. This analysis is always kind of, you can't prove this, but boy, it feels different. It just feels different. That they're not as together right now, not as connected, not having as much fun while they play basketball. And that stuff can change quickly. But I will say that even through fan base's consternation in that title year, there was something much more encouraging in the air, if that makes any sense.
Okay, let's take one more short break, and then we'll come back with Brendan's diagnose of who the Nuggets are right now. Don't go anywhere. Okay, we are back. So, Vogt, by the way, I'm listening to a lot of DNVR.com. Lately, I'm really enjoying your grades. They're just a great piece of writing after every game. And my favorite stuff about it, I always do the audio, listen the audio, text to audio option on
really?
site, because your name is Brendan Vogt over there. So I didn't know.
That's good.
I didn't know that you're a cousin of Angelina Jolie. But when I see those eyes, it actually makes sense.
You know, my dad's name is John Vogt, so John Vogt happened just about daily, actually. Yeah.
Perfection. Okay, let's start with your storyline or a stat you have for us.
Statistically, it's a little hard to sum up. I was just going to go with defensive rating at 114 and being about 14th in the league right now. Or I'm sorry, that's not correct. Excuse me, 1 second. And being about 20th in the league right now. To me, last night was a really good example. They stopped BSing around and played defense like they were playing against a very good team. And honestly, on the road, in that stretch, they were running with that team. Now, look, that can happen in basketball. You want to have consistent four-quarter performances. The Cavs are clearly better right now. But to me, what happened was they all decided to play defense, and they all decided to play together. And the offense and the defense bled together, right? Like they what was encouraging on one end inspired better play on the other. And it's like, I don't know, like personnel-wise, are the Nuggets have what it takes to be some elite defense. But can they get to a place where that switch is there again in a believable way of, okay, we probably won't see it for 4 quarters, but we see it for the 2 quarters that matter. And when we see it from all 5 or 6 of the most important guys at the same time. If they start playing defense, to Matt's point at the beginning of the show, I think it's being overlooked. The starters are still great. They're still amazing around Jokić. They can still score very easily, but they have to give themselves more margin for error. And I think it just starts by being more serious on the defensive side. Personnel lapses aside, there's still a higher ceiling for this group. And I think seriousness and focus is a part of it.
You said something that really hurt me.
Uh-oh.
You said the Cavs are obviously a better team than
right
the
now,
Nuggets.
right on December 6th.
Yeah, it's just that when you look at the top 8 of both teams, like how did we get to this point?
Well, it doesn't have to be this way. And this is what I'm getting. Like, I don't think they're damned because their top 8 can't compete with those guys. I just don't think they're playing that winning basketball right now. And they don't look like a team with a lot of margin for error. But I should let Matt speak.
kind of feel like it's a different style of defense this year too. Like that's a part of it, is that you lose KCP, and KCP, like his big thing is he denies. He gets around screens. He gets around handoffs. Like he interrupts possession so early where it's like he's making a difference 24 to 23 seconds into the shot clock. And now it's like, I think like when the really good moments are like maybe you have Peyton and Christian out there, or Peyton and AG out there. And these are now switches. They're not like chasing around screens. It's these like switches. When those are on time, it looks really good because these guys are like big, like perfect optimized defenders for the modern NBA. They're big, they're strong, they're super athletic. I think if the defense is going to come along, which I certainly feel like there's room to grow, it's going to be that, like, it's going to be a shift of mentality to being like, all right, we're this like switch team now. Like and as we get more and more time doing this, and they've only not had KCP for 20 games. If you get more time kind of working under this new philosophy, I don't want to call it new scheme, because it's not like they're still going to play Jokić up at the level. They'll mix in zone. Like, it's not like it's a different philosophy kind of with the same scheme, if that makes sense. So, I kind of wonder if that will be what it has to be. Now, like when it's Jokić involved with one of the perimeter players, I think that still is definitely like getting ironed out. I think like Peyton's been actually really good defending pick and roll as just like defending the ball handler. He's been pretty good at that this year. But I think holistically, it's a pretty seismic change, right? To shift into a different style of how you're defending. And really, this might be something that takes more than 20 games.
It's true. Another thing that bothers me this season is the fact that the Nuggets are just 6-4 at home.
Yeah, man.
It's a team that has the biggest home advantage in the whole league, a mile-high arena, and yet they're 6-4, and it's not like they've only played against Boston, Cleveland, and Oklahoma City. Like 6-4 ranked 17th in the league, and you have the home court advantage of the ages. Now, I point to the flawed roster construction all the time. I think Calvin Booth didn't do a lot of favors to Michael Malone this season by removing all the veteran depth out of the team and bringing in just Russell Westbrook and Dario Saric, who, by the way, I've heard a lot of people trashing Calvin Booth for offering Saric a 2-year mini Emily contract. He wouldn't come if he wasn't offered that. He had, offers in Europe. Like, he's a really good player who would dominate in EuroLeague right now. So they really wanted him, and it didn't pan out so far. It might. I'm not as optimistic as I was at the beginning of the season. But that's one thing. Like, roster is flawed. There is a lot of players you cannot really play extensive minutes because you're going to be bleeding points. But on the other hand, you have a controllable thing in home court advantage, and you don't have the discipline to play well at home, so you're just 6-4. Does that speak? And I'm asking you, Brendan, here because I think you have a really good insight in that Malone just does not have his hand over the team as well as he used to in previous years.
I mean, I think there's an inevitable point. I'm not saying we're necessarily there yet, but I mean, honestly, put yourself into your own work shoes. I think if you had a boss for X amount of years, eventually it may not hit the same, right? When they start yelling at you or whatever it is. But I think I will just say that going back to the title year, it was a fortress. It was impenetrable. Teams weren't even trying. If you had Denver at the end of a road trip, you rested your stars. I mean, people weren't even trying. And going back to the Wolves series, where they lost some important games at home, I agree that element seems to be missing. I don't know what it is. I don't know if that's Malone or what, but that was part of what made Denver feel like this great, great team in the title years, that if you caught them at Ball Arena, your best chance was praying. And I don't think anyone's scared of them right now. And that they can get that again, small sample size still, I guess, but it does feel like this is kind of lingered since the Wolves series.
Matt, do you think that the other teams, when they are coming to Ball Arena right now, don't feel they're just not scared of what's going to happen in the next 2.5 hours, and they know that if they jump on the Nuggets, they have a chance in almost every game?
No, because I have Jokic. So I think he's so good. I don't think you can go and be like, whatever. I think you have to bring your A game, but I would say it's more of a, team's been around for this core. How long? Like
this fifth season of AG. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then if you look at when they became this, we'll say upper tier team, you could probably make the case before Jamal got hurt, but hey, I mean, that's a small sample. Really, it's that 2022-23 season. We've now had probably 140 games ish since they won the title, 120 maybe. That's a lot of games. And that's a lot of games of being like looked at this top dog team. And fair or not, like when you're looked at as a top dog team, teams are going to look at how you play. I promise you, every single team left last when they won the championship, won it convincingly. They leave that off season. Other teams built their rosters, Minnesota being a great example, to beat them. And when you have that much time to focus on one team, the team remains pretty much relatively the same. I don't even know if it's necessarily teams aren't scared of them. It's just like they kind of know, like, based on who these players are and how they play together. Like, I don't want to say what's coming, but they definitely, like, a style of play. Golden State, if they hadn't gotten Durant, I'm sure would have gone through that too, to be honest. Like, and it just happens. Like, I think that's what it's like. So the whole like Hunter versus Hunted thing last year, maybe it was teams are going to come in and play you harder, but I always looked at it as like, you're hunted because every team has watched how you play extensively. Like there are sickos out there that have watched every single pick and roll that Jamal and Jokic ran during that run and have been like, all right, how would we defend this? Maybe we put this guy on this part of the floor. Like, that's always kind of how I've looked at it. So, and you can see that. I mean, just even like the rate that Jamal's usage is down this year. The rate that they're going to certain things like that, Jamal and Jokic pick and roll is, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but it's certainly, watching it feels like it's being run less. So that might be a great example of that.
I actually think that's a good sign too. Again, I think the defense being so bad and AG and Jokic missing some games has kind of clouded that. I thought the Nuggets made themselves a little harder to guard in different ways.
Yes. Yep. That's what we said. What we said. Like last time we did a show, I was kind of like, I feel like it's probably the next evolution, right?
Right.
It's like you have to diversify a little bit.
And I actually felt like they have done that. But I don't think it feels like you have 7-8 guys pulling in the same direction right now. Defensively, especially.
Yeah.
Yes, the offense is definitely more egalitarian. Like maybe it's because Jamal wasn't hitting a lot of shots, so everybody else gets more chances. But I agree. I mean, the offense is not the problem here. In most of the games, the Nuggets are going to hit 120 with ease. But this defense, especially on the perimeter, the amount of energy the Nuggets are going to need to spend this season is even greater than what it was in previous seasons, because everybody is shooting threes like insane. Like it's a really ugly brand of basketball in my personal opinion, but it is what it is. Like it is what the Nuggets are facing, and they should be prepared for that. So yeah, it's tough. On the bright side, you mentioned Warriors, how they got lucky with Durant. They also got lucky because they missed like 2 playoff runs completely and got some nice picks to build up with, and then won that 4th championship. It's not like they only had red roses around them. It was a bumpy road for them to even after 3 championships before they got to that 4th. But you know what? We're still waiting for our 2nd, so maybe this is why we are so nervous and I don't know what's the right word, honestly. Like I'm just starting to get impatient with
tense.
this.
I think everyone's just tense.
Yeah.
But again, I think it's tense because it's still possible, right? If it
if it weren't, we wouldn't care.
Forget the tension; it would just be pitchforks. But I actually think some people have their pitchforks out, but like only one hand on it. Like they kind of want to put it away because they know Jokić is still on the team, and like it's not. No, they have not put a great roster together around Jokić, but I don't think you should write any team with Jokić on it off. I don't think they're bad enough that you go there's 0% chance, and I think that is the source of much consternation.
Okay, Brendan, you're definitely the king of segues because this was the perfect segue for our 4th and final segment for today. But before that, let's take one more short break. Don't go anywhere. Okay, we are back, and Vogt, you just mentioned that even though we are tense, it is because we still believe in our hearts that a turnaround is actually quite possible. And why? Because we have the best player in the world still on our roster. And what Joker did this season so far in 17 games, he has a 30-point average, which would be his career high. 13.5 rebounds would be his 2nd most in 2022. He had almost 14. 10.5 assists, that would be his career high. 1.8 steals, that would be his career high. And of course, 50% from the 3-point line, even though he's had like 10 full court heaves already. He just doesn't care. He just hoists those. His box plus minus dropped to 13.5, which is just 0.2 below his
Trade him.
highest.
He is an anchor.
Slacker, honestly slacker. So if the Nuggets figure out a way to preserve Joker so he does not die before the playoffs, do you think he could take even more load and figure out a way to win it all with just role players around him? He's normally a 25 points per game scorer in the regular season and a 30 points per game player in the playoffs. And he is currently at 30 in the regular season. So could he lift that to, 38 in the playoffs and help the team that way? Or do you still think that the Nuggets need to find their team identity and that's the only way to win a championship? Matt, do you want to start with this one?
I don't have an answer. Do you want to go first?
Sure. Jokić can win with this roster. But Jamal Murray needs to be Jamal Murray in the playoffs. And I think so. Again, Matt brought up those great points about, or again, as we brought up in the beginning of the show, is this just another slow start for Jamal? But beyond the fact that we were hopeful we wouldn't have to have watch a slow start, his reputation was a guy who'll get it done when it matters most, and he didn't last year. And the second you don't, what becomes of that reputation? So it's one thing if he had a slow start after looking awesome in the postseason again, but there's a taste to rinse out of people's mouths. And I do think the team needs to come together. They need to find their identity, absolutely. But when they get to the playoffs, even if they do, at some point, a second star needs to be able to just hit star shots and respond to things like what Kyrie Irving is doing. And Murray, it wasn't just how great of a team player he was in that postseason run. He was a second star. He had those moments, and they will need that again. But if they establish an identity, that is how good Jokić is. Yes, they can still win.
Yeah, I'll echo that. I'm sorry, I was looking up some. Nikola's taking more shots on a per 36 minute basis than any season, which I thought was just really interesting. Shooting a lot, which is what you want. I feel like in past years, like you look at the championship season, he took 21 field goals per 100 possessions. This year he's taking 25. Like there were so many points where you're like, man, we want Jokić to shoot more. We want Jokić to shoot more. And he does it. And you're like, oh my God, he's like, he's averaging 30 on a great efficiency. He's incredible, man. Like, you know, the fact that he's able to dial it up this way, have a career year as a shooter, you know, continue to just fill the box score the way he is, it puts you in contention. I will also say I don't think the Western Conference is, and it's starting to shape up this way. Like OKC, Dallas is shooting up the standings. I think those teams are really good. I'd expect them to be at the top. But even so, it's a weird year in the West. It's kind of shaken out in a way where we're looking at the East and there's these two heavyweights, and the West is like there's really good teams, but they're not like 23 or anything like that. Right. And in a way, that gives you a little bit more breathing room. Again, no like disrespect to any of the teams up top. They're really good teams. I don't think they're totally unbeatable. I think like I'll take like OKC. OKC's a really good team. They're probably half a ball handler short right now. Like you're kind of betting on Jalen Williams taking that step as a ball handler. And that's what the kind of the dilemma that every single team is facing now. They're not like in the 8th seed, like trying to figure out what they're doing, but they are like every team has its questions. That's just kind of how it is. That's how parity is in the NBA now. So as Brendan put, like if they can find that identity, and I think the big thing we've hit on a lot is defense. If there is that shift, if you can get all 5 guys working on a string, and maybe you're not going to be like a top 10 defense or top 9 or whatever they finished last year, but if you can get into like that top 15 range, like Yoke's doing enough, and Jamal's trending up that, yeah, you should feel optimistic. I think, and we've said this, like, that's why like certain games like yesterday, like I came out of that game really deflated, and it was because they showed this like stretch of 7 minutes where you're like, there it is. That's it. Like, cause I've been waiting all year. We're 20 games in and I'm like, I'm waiting for that stretch, and you're like, oh my God, there they are. This is it. Like I'm waiting for the run. They're going to ring off like 6 straight, and then it doesn't quite happen. So yes, that sucks, but it tells you, hey, we still think it's there. Like we are, whether we're right or wrong, I don't know, but we all believe that it's there. So let's believe, you know?
Yeah. I mean, to answer Miroslav's question from the start of the show, right? Is 20 games enough to say definitively they've lost it and they won't get it back? I don't think so. No, these have not been an encouraging 20 games, all things considered. But I also think there's a lot of noise in here, man. I think we should give this team another month before we say, you know, definitively that they are incapable of something. They're not the favorites this year, right? They're not the best team in the league. It'll be an uphill battle, even if they figure it out. But that is the ultimate luxury of having the best player alive, is you are different than every other team that's having to figure it out. You do have a better best punch. And that's, no matter how much we've learned about parity and team building, the league is still stayed the same in one crucial way. You need one of the guys to have chance. Yep. And the Nuggets have one of the guys.
Yeah, it's the togetherness. Is it the togetherness that I miss the most from this team? Because some guys are playing their asses off. Like Christian Brown is having a great season. Michael Porter is playing his best season so far. Let's put it like that. I'm not saying he's having a perfect season, but he is really, really good this season. Joker is the best he's ever been. Russell Westbrook is playing his ass off. Like I love the attitude that guy has. He had a lot of mistakes last night. Don't get me wrong. Russell Westbrook did. But I really appreciate everything he's giving to this team. And I think he can help the team go in the right direction. They just need to connect together. And you know what, guys? You know what's in 9 days from today? It's Yokmas.
See,
Yokmas is still coming.
Yeah, man,
so
it's too early.
I don't know if it's related to Joker himself or to the Nuggets as a whole. I kind of hope it's the other thing, because, you know, like, what more should we ask from Joker? Like slacker, what, 22, 20, and 11 on only 50%
He
from the
didn't
field.
wait for Jokić this year. He did not wait. No.
I think he checked his watch and he said, no, I cannot be late for this party this
Man,
year.
someone in the chat last night in our show said, Jokić missed some of those offensive rebounds. And I went, yeah, he missed a couple. And I was like, he had 20 rebounds. He had 20 rebounds. I'm going to stop, actually.
Yeah, 20 rebounds. When you put that into perspective of those 3 games the Nuggets played without him when they were struggling to rebound for anything. Now, granted, Aaron Gordon wasn't part of those games as well. So they were really, really down in their front court. But man, don't take those 20 rebounds for granted. Like that's a skill so many centers don't have anymore because they spend too much time at the perimeter jacking up threes, which Joker does do, but he still gets for those offensive rebounds. So, Matt, what do you expect from Jokić this season?
I expect a lighter schedule. That'll be kind of nice. I was looking through. Nuggets are 6-4 in at home, right? I think against above 500 teams, they
played
are
a lot of above 500.
6-8, and all 4 of those home losses are against above 500 teams. So if there's reason for optimism, you have a Washington coming up. Atlanta's kind of playing well. Sacramento has been kind of rocky. New Orleans has been great. That's an understatement. Phoenix, we don't know if Durant will be back. There's some games coming up. Detroit, Utah, that's on a back-to-back right before the new year. So there's some games that you're going to get. It's just been a lot of above 500 teams so far. 14 out of 20 is a lot. So for Jokić, hopefully we get some easier wins. It would be nice to see the above 500 record, kind of trend up. But hey, as they're working through the kinks, working through trying to figure out who they are, it's a lot easier to do that. And you have more breathing room, and it's less deflating to do that against teams that you have a better chance of winning against. Whereas, hey, when you have a great stretch against the Cavs, but then you don't play as well. By the way, when you just said the thing about Jokić, my moment yesterday was he caught that ball. By the way, catches a full court pass, catches it, and then like off 1 foot takes a floater, and it didn't go in. And my mind was like, damn, he missed that. And I was like, I'm asking a center to catch a ball. Totally. Court and take a floater. Like what is happening to my brain?
I think Marlo, understandably, because I thought the same thing, goes, Jokić misses an easy one. And then you're like, yeah, wait.
It's a center.
I don't think it was easy. Yeah, totally, man. Totally. But
anyways, my point with this is, like it's a little easier to run off your good stretches and work through things against teams that are less talented. So if there's ever a stretch, and this is where we can like really be, if this next stretch, you go through these next 20 games and it's still kind of like, then like maybe we can have that conversation, but at least we're going to get to do this and go through the soul searching phase against a bunch of teams that are not having as good of seasons as a lot of the teams they played.
That's how you do it, Matt. I mean, the Popovich Spurs, which, by the way, won against the best teams when it mattered most, and that's a very important layer. But in the meantime, to make the playoffs year after year, and as you said, even as you're having those years where we have stuff to work through, the blueprint in the NBA for a long time has been feed off the bottom feeders, right? And so hopefully the Nuggets can do that. They actually sneakily over the years have been better at that than an antiquated reputation suggested. Every fan base remembers the bad loss to the bad team and thinks we always do this. The Nuggets actually pick up good wins against bad teams over the years.
Yeah, not true. Last year I think they had the second best record, maybe third against below 500 teams last year.
So it's an old one. That's a myth. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's like every fan base being like, oh my God, this role player always goes off. Why do the role players always go off? Like every team thinks that.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, like Sam Merrill. What would I do to have Sam Merrill last night? Yeah.
Right. Until Sam Merrill's here and you're like, hang on.
Yeah, and he cannot hit anything.
Just kidding.
Yeah, so guys, I want to thank you because I feel better now than I felt an hour ago, which is great because Nuggets are a big part of my life, and I was pretty grumpy this whole day. People could have seen that on Twitter, but yeah, I feel so much better now. Folks, go to nuggets.com, read Matt's stuff. He's a great writer. He has a lot of pieces over there. Go to ddnvr.com and read Vogt's stuff. He had, if you've missed it, the great piece about Michael Malone surpassing Doug Moe. It's a once in a lifetime piece, I think. Vogt. It was really a great piece of
now
writing.
I'm feeling good too. Wait
From
a
you.
minute on the show, Miroslav.
So go and read these guys. I'm not writing anything. I will write an article a year, and sometimes I will publish it. Sometimes I will forget to do it, and that's probably for the best. And that's all I've prepared for you this week, my dear listener. And please, with a cherry on top, take the word prepare very loosely. Be well, be safe, be kind to everybody. Call your mom, and until next week, Thomas Welsh.